Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Ram. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Ram. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Ram. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Ram. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Ram. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo. Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Nitai Gora Hari Bol, Nitai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Nitai Gora Hari Bol. Jayam Vishnupada Mantra Pravrajika Chaja Astotra Sutta Shishimani Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Teaching Jayam Vishnupada Mantra Pravrajika Chaja Astotra Sutta Shishimani Divine Grace Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Maharaj Teaching Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Teaching Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Teaching Prem Sikho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktivedanta Teaching Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kundradha Kundra Govardhan Teaching Sri Vrindavan Dham Teaching Mathura Dham Teaching Navadvip Dham Teaching Yamuna Devi Ganga Devi Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Teaching Rihad Madanga Teaching Harinam Sankirtan Yati Teaching Samadeta Bhaktivedanta Teaching Janitai Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. All glory to the some devotees, Hare Krishna. All glory to the some devotees, Hare Krishna. All glory to the some devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the Sri Sri Guru and Sri Guranga. All glories to Sri Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So we're reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila chapter 6, and we'll be reading from verse, we start at 607 through to 226. So I'll just confirm that. Yes, so 607 through to 226. So what I'll do is I'll read after 226 and then we can chant that together. You should be able to see on the screen. I won't torment you with my Bengali until it's absolutely necessary. So, text number 207. After hearing the 100 verses, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu happily embraced Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was immediately overwhelmed in ecstatic love of Godhead and fell unconscious. Text number 208. Down with ecstatic love of God, the Bhattacharya shed tears and his body was stunned. He exhibited an ecstatic mood and he perspired, shook and trembled. He sometimes danced, sometimes chanted, sometimes cried, and sometimes fell down to touch the lotus feet of the Lord. 209. While Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was in this ecstasy, Gopinathacharya was very pleased. The associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all laughed to see the Bhattacharya dancing. 210. Gopinathacharya told Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sir, you have brought all this upon Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, you are a devotee. Because of your association, Lord Jagannath has shown him mercy. Text 212. After this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu pacified the Bhattacharya, and when he was quieted, he offered many prayers to the Lord. 213. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, "My dear sir, you have delivered the entire world, but that is not a very great task. However, you have also delivered me, and that is certainly the work of very wonderful powers." 214. I have become dull-headed due to reading too many books on logic. Consequently, I have become like an iron bar. Nonetheless, you have melted me, and therefore your influence is very great. 215. After hearing the prayers offered by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned to his residence, and the Bhattacharya, Gopinathacharya, induced the Lord to accept lunch there. 216. Early the following morning, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to see Lord Jagannath in the temple, and he saw the Lord rise from his bed. 217. The priest there presented him with garlands and prasadam that had been offered to Lord Jagannath. This pleased Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very much. 218. Carefully tying the prasadam and garlands in a cloth, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu hastened to the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Text 219. He arrived at the Bhattacharya's house a little before sunrise, just when the Bhattacharya was arising from bed. 220. As Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya rose from bed, he distinctly chanted, "Krishna, Krishna." Lord Chaitanya was very pleased to hear him chant the holy name of Krishna. 221. The Bhattacharya noticed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu outside, and with great haste he went to him and offered prayers unto his lotus feet. 222. The Bhattacharya offered a carpet for the Lord to sit upon, and both of them sat there. Then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu opened the prasadam and placed it in the hands of the Bhattacharya. 223. At that time the Bhattacharya had not even washed his mouth, nor had he taken his bath or finished his morning duties. Nonetheless, he was very pleased to receive the prasadam of Lord Jagannath. 224. By the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the dullness in the mind of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was eradicated. After reciting the following two verses, he ate the prasadam and offered to him. He ate the prasadam offered to him. 225. The Bhattacharya said, "One should eat the Mahaprasadam of the Lord immediately upon receiving it, even though it is dried up, stale, or brought from a distant country. One should consider neither time nor place." Okay, so we'll chant this verse, text 226, together. Nadesha nityamas tatra nakala niyamastata praptam annam rutam shishte bhaktavyam hari abravit nadesha niyamastatra nakala niyamastata raptamanam drutam sishte bhaktavyam hari abravit nadesha niyamastatra nakala niyamastata praptamanam drutam shishte bhaktavyam hari abravit. Okay. Transliteration. Na, not. Desha, of the country. Niyamaha, regulation. Tatra, in that. Na, not. Kala, of time. Niyamaha, regulation. Tata, so also. Praptam, received. Anam, prasadam. Rutam, hastily. Shishte, by gentlemen. Bhaktavyam, to be eaten. Harihi, the Lord. Abravit, has said. Translation interpreted by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. The prasadam of Lord Krishna is to be eaten by gentlemen as soon as it is received. There should be no hesitation. There are no regulative principles concerning time and place. This is the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Chakshuruni Tamina Tasmai Shri Guru Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yatapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ratnakandatam Twantujivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Virgina Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sukadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo. Krishna himself says this material energy is very difficult to overcome for us. But Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is making the point, you have delivered the entire world, but that is not a very great task. What is very difficult for us to overcome is effortless for the Supreme Personality of Godhead to do. So we have to always understand our position of dependence. It's easy to forget the position of dependence, but it is absolutely lethal to forget the position of dependence. What happens when the devotee forgets that they are dependent is that they become puffed up and proud, because they think that whatever they're doing is being achieved by them. And Krishna, he has a very, he's very mischievous, but he also has a very intimate and sweet relationship with his devotees. So what does he do? We become proud. He says, okay, I'm holding this for you. Right? It's raining outside. Don't worry. I've got the umbrella. I've got you. Okay? So we're walking around thinking, you know what? I'm dry. It's all good. For you. And when we forget who's carrying the umbrella, that it's very easy for that person to remove the umbrella as a very gentle reminder. Right? So as long as we think it's Krishna, this is the amazing thing about Krishna consciousness. When you think it's him, he gives you the credit. Right? Achieve what you will achieve in this life. In other words, your prayojana will be completely ecstatic. These two things in life. Material life is static. Spiritual life is ecstatic. In fact, the nature of devotional life is ecstatic. The holy name, if it's chanted without the coverings, you chant this holy name, you're immediately in ecstasy. You read any of Prabhupada's books without the covering, you read these books, you can directly perceive this is coming in from the spiritual platform. What actually happens as the covering is taken off, then your senses in that purified state, they actually perceive a lot more than these dull material senses. So it's not a question of faith ultimately. Ultimately, it's not a question of faith. In the ultimate sense, everything that you've ever read in these books, you can directly perceive if you become pure. I repeat that. Every single thing that you've ever read in these books and the statements of Prabhupada, all those statements, if there is sufficient purity, getting rid of the covers, if the heart is sufficiently clean, every single thing that you read, you can directly perceive by the grace of the same Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is the actual understanding that's given here. This is real Sambandha Gyan. He says here, you have delivered the entire world, but it's not a very great task. That means this is a sane individual speaking. Because he sees things in their proper context. It's very easy in devotional life to think Krishna is unfair. I would ask you, how many of you have ever felt that Krishna was unfair to you, right? But we're in ISKCON, so people will pretend that, it's okay, I never thought that. I always had faith in Krishna, I always knew, right? Practically everyone thinks Krishna is unfair. Everyone, at some point in their spiritual life. Because at some point in our spiritual life, we don't get what we think we want. And at various points in our spiritual life, we distinctly get things that we don't necessarily want. Ever had that experience? Yeah. At various points in our spiritual life, we distinctly get things that we don't want. And that's if we're very lucky. We know what we want, but that kind of conception in spiritual life is lethal, it's foolish actually. What you want is whatever Krishna wants for you. I was in Harinam yesterday, and I was speaking to an old friend of mine who has a lot of realization. What happens in spiritual life is we're still building up this sukriti, this spiritual credit. Bhakti Mukhi Sukriti. It's explained in Harinam Chintamani by Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur. The more you build up this spiritual credit, the more we will come to our senses. Your spiritual intelligence is actually the accumulation of spiritual credit. And the more you accumulate spiritual credit, the more you will really understand what you've enlisted in. The more you'll really understand. You understand what? Real Sambandha Gyan. There's actually only 3 elements to our entire teaching, essentially. Real Sambandha Gyan, what? It is Ishvara, that's Krishna. Okay? So he's topmost. You have 2 other elements at the bottom. Okay? Where at the bottom? Right? Jiva. There's something else at the bottom which is Prakriti. Okay? So let's repeat that. Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti. Okay? These 3 elements. 3 ingredients. But there's something more. Each of these ingredients, there's something between them. So you have Ishvara, so you have Krishna, and you have the material energy. So Krishna, he's like your software developer. Okay? He's your computer programmer. Because we're in the technological age, okay? So we'll make it nice and easy. He's your computer programmer. Prakriti is the hardware. Okay? So I know we're at the manor, so we'll say it's your Apple Macintosh, your Apple Mac computer, right? High level. So you've got the software developer, you've got the hardware. The hardware runs on a program. So between the Supreme Lord, who doesn't touch his material nature, he doesn't touch it. It's beneath him. He doesn't touch it directly. So between him and this computer, this hardware, you have the program, you have the software. So how is the software working? It's working according to a program called color, time. Inbuilt into this material energy and inbuilt into the material energy that consists of your material body, there's a program, color. So therefore, the programming is when the body's young, it functions like this. A bit later on, the body's going to function in a different way. A bit later on, the body functions in a different way. That program is called color. So Ishvara, between the Lord and the material energy, he programs and directs the material energy through the function of time. Okay? That's one point. Then there's us at the bottom. So the jiva between us and the material energy. We interact with the material energy. That interaction is called karma, activity. So listen carefully to this. We've touched upon 5 things. Ishvara, Kala, Prakriti, Karma, Jiva. Has anyone heard of these 5 things before? What are they? They're the 5 themes of the Bhagavad Gita. That's how these 5 themes are derived. The 5 themes, this is Sambandha Gyan. Just 3 ingredients and the interactions. Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti, and the interrelationship between each of them. But there's more. There's an implicit 6th theme. Okay? So we've talked about the relationship between the Lord and the material energy. We've talked about the relationship between the living entity and the material energy. So what's the relationship that's left? Between the Lord and who? And us. Jiva and Ishvara. So what's our relationship with Krishna? We're his what? We're his servants. Okay? So devotional service. What kind of yoga is devotional service? It's what kind of yoga? Bhakti yoga. So the relationship between Jiva and Ishvara is called Bhakti yoga. It's the implicit sixth topic. But it's implicit because you have to interact to make it real. We bring it out by devotional service. And by devotional service, we understand this point. It's easy for Krishna to do anything. But the fact that he's been so kind enough to even consider us his servant and to engage us in his service, as Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya here, however you have also delivered me, and that is certainly the work of very wonderful powers. And we should understand that. Any contact you've had with Krishna consciousness means that you are, to say extremely fortunate is an understatement. This, what we come to and hear about from day one, is like the open secret, and at the same time it's the most confidential secret. So if you want to know if someone's really fortunate, just look around you. Whenever you see people wearing this tilak, you should know this person is extremely rare, unique, special, fortunate. Even the devotees that you don't like. Even the ones who annoy us, they're extremely special. That's a confirmation, by the way. Okay. Even the devotees who don't like us and we don't get along with, they're extremely special. But Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya says more, I had become dull-headed due to reading too many books on logic. Consequently, I had become like an iron bar. Nonetheless, you have melted me, and therefore your influence is very great. He's considering himself so ridiculous and fallen and lacking in knowledge that the fact that he's able to understand anything is thinking, Krishna, you're very kind that I can understand this. We sometimes have this misconception. I've seen devotees who think that, I'm not into Gyan Prabhu. I like to chant Hare Krishna. These books, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam, they're not considered Gyan in that sense. There's a translation that Prabhupada gives of the Anya Bilasata Shunyam verse, okay, which is from Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And when Prabhupada translates the word for word, he says, because of this verse, Anya Bilasata Shunyam, Gyanakar Madanavritam, Anukulyena Krishna Nushilanam Bhakti Uttama. So he said that one has to engage in this devotional service for the pleasure of the Lord, free of the desire for karma and gyan. Now, that word gyan, when Prabhupada translates it, he indicates that it refers to impersonalist and voidist philosophy. It doesn't relate to Prabhupada's books. It doesn't relate to Bhakti Shastras, not at all. This knowledge, properly conceived and properly held within the heart, this will change the individual. Because we're like the iron bar. We're all like the iron bar. Unfortunately, due to being hard-hearted, we can't, not only can we not taste anything, we can't perceive reality. Because the funny thing is actually, the reality is ecstatic. Who you are as a soul is ecstatic. Sat, Chit, Ananda. And the difficulty is, as long as we don't have any spiritual taste, we'll just keep trying to engage or squeeze some taste out of the material energy. And you can die. You can go through your whole life and literally die just trying to squeeze something out of the material energy. There's a way to really taste Krishna consciousness. Okay? There's a way to really experience, wow, this is so blissful. But it requires many different elements, but one of the most important is the correct attitude. You can't be proud in Krishna consciousness. In fact, to be honest, I believe it's Jiva Goswami says if a devotee is proud, Krishna will allow them to be humiliated. You think I'm joking? I'm deadly serious. He'll find some way, look, we need to get rid of your false ego. You're very proud. One manifestation of pride is you think it's you. So Krishna will allow you to think it's you. He will allow it to some extent. This is another thing we don't understand. Once you come to Krishna consciousness, you're like the family member, right? When you're 1 year old, right? When you're a young child, a young baby, and you're pulling everything in your mouth, the parents will think it's cute. right? They'll look at you, oh, so cute. Oh, you do that when you're 35 years old, you're going to get a completely different reaction from your parents. You'll sometimes see this. You'll think, this devotee's acting this way. How come he's able to get away with it? And this devotee, he's trying very hard, or he's doing this, he's doing that. You'll think, these devotees don't behave so well. No, they don't seem to have so many of the challenges that this other person has. If they're young in Krishna consciousness, Krishna will look at them, oh, they're young. They don't know any better. Right? They're only 1 year old in Krishna consciousness. They're only 5 years old in Krishna consciousness. Oh, they're just a teenager in Krishna consciousness. But when someone's like a grown adult in Krishna consciousness and they act the same way, you'll see Krishna's like, no, dude, this is unacceptable. You need to change now. So the whole process of Krishna consciousness is very individual, and the expectation is that every single one of us are meant to grow up. Krishna consciousness, even if you don't believe it, it is so blissful it could kill you. Just what Prabhupada has given is so intensely blissful, it can cause people to leave their... In the past times we sometimes hear about devotees, our separation in that sense. But the point is, it is like that. But we have to engage in real Krishna consciousness. And the mood of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya in these verses, he's really helping us to understand what is real Krishna consciousness. There are, we call them mellows of devotion. He's speaking here, I've become dull-headed. You want to cultivate humility, why? Because you want to experience love. You want your heart to feel full. There's no question of being happy in life unless you're wealthy. There's no question. No one who's lacking wealth can be happy in life, but there's different types of wealth. The people who have external wealth, they don't really have wealth because you have so much around you and so little within you. So you're still poor, right? It's just like if you're hungry and you have gold. You can't eat the gold, so you're still hungry. So the wealth, the external situation, it can't fulfill the internal situation. Does that make some sense? I was hearing one class, and one devotee was mentioning how he has a friend who's a psychologist. And the psychologist told him, the psychologist said that I've seen that the people who are poor are generally happier than the people who are rich. And he explained to him why. He said, because the poor people still have the hope that when I get money, I'll be happy. He said, the rich people, they know it's not going to work. Right? Because they've got the money and it's like, it's not, I'm still missing. Something's still missing. So it's like when you're hungry inside and you've got the gold around you, but you know you can't eat the gold. So the situation outside, it doesn't fulfill the lacking inside. And then funnily enough, what then happens, and I'm sure you've seen this happen, what then happens is you become irritated at the people who have nothing, or seemingly very little externally, who are much happier than you are. Right? And that's just annoying, because it just sends a message, dude, you wasted your time. How come they don't have everything that you have, but they're a lot happier than you are? There's nothing wrong with making sure that the external situation is functional. Okay, it's not another extreme. But what you really want to do is be very conscious of how much your heart's full. You should really pay attention to that. How much am I getting? How much is entering into the heart? When I go about my daily activities, do I feel a sense of fullness in my Krishna consciousness? And if not, we should then try to do a diagnosis. What is it that I need to do differently so that the heart becomes full? And the preaching, to be honest with you, ideally, the preaching is the spillover. Because if the preaching isn't the spillover, what happens is the preaching becomes something material. I'm unhappy, I'm miserable, so I'm going to do something external that's going to get people to look at me and tell me how wonderful I am. That's what will happen. This is called the substitution effect. So we really want to make sure that we live our Krishna consciousness in such a way that the heart becomes full. The process is meant for that purpose. And especially when you interact with people, they can pick it up. You don't know. There's so many wonderful things in Krishna consciousness. One of them is that if you have good friends, good people around you, and you ask them, they can see all kinds of things about you that you don't see. They can just see, Prabhu, I think this is what's going on, or you seem like this, or you seem a bit irritated like that, whatever it is. It's a great adventure. It's a great adventure if someone is like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya here. It's a great adventure for someone who's humble. Because humility is the ability to see your position properly. It's that simple. Humility is the ability to see your position properly. And it's a very two-way activity. Because the more you can see yourself properly, you know what the amazing thing is? If you can see yourself properly, you find that you'll be much more able to see everyone else as well. Why? Because it's the same mirror. Cheto Darpana Marjanam. We're cleansing the mirror. Okay? And the mirror by which you see yourself is the same mirror by which you see everyone else. It's the same mirror by which you see the material world. It's the same mirror by which you see anything. And when the mirror is very clear, we can see ourselves in the most, in the deepest sense, let's say. When the mirror is very clear, we really know who we are. We really know who we are. We really know what this world is. We really know who Krishna is. And that reality, that coming back in touch with reality, it is ecstatic. And this is what the world is lacking. People aren't lacking so many things externally in many cases. Some cases that's also there. But what we're really lacking is ecstasy. What we're really lacking is a deep sense of fulfillment. But Krishna consciousness is the exclusive path to achieve that fulfillment. And just like anything, it also requires proper association. They've done studies when people are high achievers in any area. You sometimes have people who go from, let's say, a school where everyone was messing around, no one was serious, no one was focused on their studies, and then they do the experiment. They take that young person and they pull them in another school where the default is you are going to Oxford or Cambridge, right? The default is you are going to get, A stars in everything. The default is you're going to be top tier. And they examined the effect of such association. So even materially, it's phenomenal. Because the default is that's what everyone does. That's just normal. So because that's normal, you imbibe those habits. You imbibe a certain mentality. Same thing with Olympics. They found that people, when a particular country, when they tend to be the gold medalists, because of the status of their practice, their discipline, that whole vibe, that whole can-do attitude, we can do this. Right? We have the gold medalists on our team. That attitude raises the bar for everyone else on the same team. So in the same way, the association we keep raises the bar. And we shouldn't think it's just about getting that association. We should think that I should become that association. As we engage in Krishna consciousness as sincerely as possible, what actually will happen is as the consciousness becomes clear, to be honest, your perception of the world changes. And what's really incredible is even your perception of the scripture changes. What you read before, you will read these same literatures again. And something different will appear to you on the same pages. I'm going to use a mundane analogy. Before I became a devotee, I think it was before I became a devotee, I watched this movie. And it was The Usual Suspects. And you had these different characters, they're all kind of criminals, and you can't figure out who did it. And at the end, towards the end of the movie, you find out that the person who you thought was just some kind of, spaced out individual who doesn't really know what's going on, you find out that he's the criminal mastermind. Right at the end. And then you look back at the whole thing and you think, yeah, when he did that was what he was doing this. When he said this is what was going on. When he did that, this was what was going on. And you have this kind of experience. And as we go through spiritual life, you go back to the scripture and think, my God, how come I didn't see this before? I read this, but hold on, Prabhupada's actually saying this. Or before I thought this, and I look at the same verse again. No, hold on. He's directly stating this. Now what's interesting is the literature hasn't changed. So what's changed? You've changed. Specifically, your consciousness has changed. And this is really amazing. This is why you know it's a living process. Because you see, actually, you're a different person. It's hard to see the truth if I'm tied down. And tied down by what? It's hard to see the truth if I'm tied by my attachments. As long as there are attachments there, certain things in the scripture, my mind will dial them down. Not so important. They're important. But to me, they're not so important because I'm not quite ready to hear that right now. And the other bits that I like here, right? Here it's talking about taking prasadam, right? Everyone likes this bit, right? You see here, the prasadam of Lord Krishna is to be eaten by gentlemen as soon as it is received. Full marks, right? You get my vote, right? There should be no hesitation. There are no regulative principles concerning time and place. This is the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. An aside here, there are no regulative principles. Have we heard that before? That there's something that you can do and that there are no hard and fast rules to doing it? Ever heard that line before? Yeah? You heard that line before about what? About the chanting. And then when you came to Krishna consciousness, did you ever find that there's suddenly all these classes about how you should chant? Has anyone ever came across that? Yeah. Yeah, that happens a lot. Yeah, there's no hard and fast rules. Just help yourself. No hard and fast rules. And then later on, Prabhu or Mataji, you know the way that you chant? You're not chanting properly. You need to chant like this. You need to chant like that. In fact, there are prayers, and ideally you should chant at this time, not this time. Right? So it's like that. We call this a small print. You're going to find this over years. There's a lot of the small print in here. There's a contract, and there's also the fine print. Just so you know. But here we're emphasizing the fact that there's no hard and fast rules, right? So it's a good day. So here we're emphasizing this particular point. So Bhattacharya says, one should eat the Mahaprasadam of the Lord immediately upon receiving it. Now it's interesting here. Let's see at this line. Let's see if we can find this verse. You see, this is interesting. Verse number 224. By the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the dullness in the mind of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was eradicated. By the mercy of the Lord, the cleansing process takes place, and because the consciousness is cleared, that's how we're able to see reality. So someone like Srila Prabhupada, when we talk about seeing reality, he can see Krishna, he can see the pastimes. The pastimes are always being enacted within the heart. He knows what's going on, Krishna's Leela, what happens in the morning, what happens later on in the day, throughout the particular day. Oh, Krishna's doing this now. And that awareness, that connection is ecstatic. A devotee who's properly connected, they feel Krishna's presence. Okay, let's pause. So when we're connected, we can feel that connection. You know that you're connected to Krishna. You actually feel this sense of the fullness in the heart. You feel that mercy is accumulating in the heart. And it's actually, this is another thing to really understand. It is by the mercy of sadhus that we have the fuel for our spiritual life. It's not because I'm a great devotee and I work very hard. It's not like that. Although we must work very hard. We must work very hard. But you should understand that Krishna consciousness is a gift that's given by those who have Krishna. Yeah? It's a it seems like a simple statement, but as we progress in spiritual life, you'll understand just how profoundly true that statement is. Yeah? And so this is an example, because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's here acting as a devotee. By the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the dullness in the mind of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was eradicated. Not that we're doing it by ourselves, we're receiving. And so our effort is to be very receptive. And it's not something that you can suddenly switch on. It's just like people sometimes like to cheat. So the idea is that, I'm going to do whatever I like in this life. I'll name my children after Krishna, right? Narayan, you can be Narayan, you can be Krishna, we can call you Radharani just to make sure we've got both sides covered, right? Both sides covered. And then the idea is that when I'm nearly dying, after I've enjoyed myself as much as possible materially, right, I know that I like my kids, right? So I'll just call out, because I've read about Ajamil in the Srimad Bhagavatam, be okay. It won't work like that. Because actually Krishna's within the heart. And therefore, we can't cheat Krishna. The only person that we can cheat, unfortunately, is who? Is ourselves. Yeah. So a sign of intelligence, someone who's intelligent, if they're actually intelligent, they're humble. If they're actually intelligent, they have a mood of service. If they're actually intelligent, you don't become offensive. What does offense do? Offense is actually you're ripping out your own spiritual advancement. That's what it means to be offensive. You've taken all this time and energy to grow this devotional creeper, and then you're actually ripping your own devotional creeper out so you can have nothing to show for all the work that you've done. And then I've been chanting for so many years, and this Krishna consciousness is so difficult. No, you're just offensive. Right? If you weren't offensive, you would have been much further ahead by now. It really is like that. And don't think that that's such an obvious thing, because also when we uproot the creeper, then what happens is you can still be around the devotees, but you engage in the shadow of Krishna consciousness. Right? So rather than serving Krishna, I now serve my false ego. Right? And it looks wonderful even externally, but inside you're just dry. And you're dry. And it's like there's just nothing in the tank. Fuel tank is empty. The car is not going anywhere. And because of that lack of taste, therefore, what happens? Without some higher taste, this paramdritva nivartate, without the higher taste, you just have to search for things in matter. Because what else do we know? So try and guard against that. Try and guard against that. Again, you'll find the more you engage in Krishna consciousness sincerely, actually the more intelligent you become. There's two types of intelligence. There's a karmic intelligence which relates to the body, material. But there's a spiritual intelligence which relates to Krishna. When Krishna says, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupayanti te. Those who serve me with devotion, I give them the knowledge by which, or the intelligence by which they can come to me. That intelligence is unlimited. And it is in unlimited supply, and Krishna is willing to give that to each and every single one of us. If there is a sincere desire to know and serve. It is very interesting. The words that are used, Siddhanta. Siddhanta actually means the conclusions of the Shastra. You understand? It's the conclusions. So it's like this. You have an equation. What Krishna says, don't worry about the equation. I'm just going to give you the answer. Right? For example, this chanting of the Hare Krishna, if you said, you know what, I'm gonna just read all the Vedic literatures and study all of them in depth, and you were to do it sincerely, the conclusion that you would reach is if there's any sadhana, because there's many sadhanas mentioned, if you were to read all the Vedas and study them extensively and honestly, the conclusion that you would reach is, you know what, I've studied all of them, the proper conclusion is I should chant Hare Krishna. Right? If you were to study all the literatures extensively, the conclusion you would reach is I have to serve those people who are dear to Krishna. Those people who have Krishna. Those unalloyed devotees of the Lord. I should serve those people. I should associate with and serve those devotees. If you were to read all of it perfectly without bias, right, without the kind of like, well, but I want to do this, so I'm going to ignore that bit and just focus on this. If you did it without bias, these conclusions, and who's giving you all these conclusions? Srila Prabhupada gave it to you from day one. You come into ISKCON, he's given everything that you need to be in ecstasy for the rest of this existence and to go back to Godhead and to continue in that ecstatic relationship. The process is so, it's literally more ecstasy than you can handle. And it would make your most hardcore materialist and whatever they're doing, whatever sense gratification they're getting, you'd look at it and you think, this is poison. You would not, you'd feel that I'd have to lose my sanity to change my position to even think about what they're doing. Because again, that spillover, because you can actually feel, whoa, I can feel that my heart's got something now. The tank is full. You can feel it. So this is how we're going to move forward. Because your tank is full, when you speak to other people, they can feel it because they know. They can pick it up subtly. What this person is speaking about is not theoretical. If they're speaking from realization and if they're connected to Krishna, then who does it? Krishna does it. Huh? This entire material world is like a big bad murder mystery, and the question is, who did it? Krishna did it. So this is the life we're meant to lead. And look, let's be very clear about this. The idea that we can give up sense gratification immediately generally doesn't work. Anyone notice that at all? Anyone? Yeah. It doesn't happen immediately, but there's an orientation. And especially if you're early in your Krishna consciousness, we want to encourage you, start strong. Right? Sometimes in good families, when they have a child, what they'll do is they'll start pulling some money away for that child, right? The idea is that when he or she grows up, there's a little bit of a nest egg, and then they can buy a place or whatever. This is that Krishna consciousness is very similar to that. Start strong. Because as life goes on, you have other responsibilities which require your time and energy. We do say, Prabhupada said, just add Krishna. But if you add Krishna properly, then you'll be adding more and more and more Krishna. This is how it works. So what Prabhupada sometimes does is he gives you the seed. And he knows this seed, if they water the seed properly, the seed will become a tree. So if someone takes a seed and 10 years down the line it's still a seed, what does that tell you? They're doing something wrong. So if you're still adding Krishna after 50 years, there's something's gone seriously wrong here. Just like in the same way, if the seed is there and it's still a seed 10 years later on, there's something wrong. So yes, accept the seed, but if you water the seed properly, that seed will grow. And it's not the kind of it's not a kind of forced growth. You see that the seed becomes a tree, and there are some very luscious fruits on the tree. And you can experience the fruits on the tree, and you just taste them, it's like, this is delicious. This is so delicious, it makes everything else seem like suffering. I just want more. This is the sign that there is some real progress being made. So what we're meant to do is we're meant to introspect. We're meant to see, not what's the condition of everything else. That's there, but that's secondary. What is the condition of the heart? How much fuel do you have in the tank? Okay? Again, understand that even the nature of the soul is ecstatic. The nature of Krishna consciousness is very ecstatic. And because we're pleasure-seeking by nature, we need to look to see, how can I realize the ecstasy, the fullness of Krishna consciousness? And that has a lot to do with the sincerity with which we serve. The sincerity with which we serve, the sincerity with which we associate. Excuse me. And in that way, this, as is stated here, this verse, I had become dull-headed due to reading too many books on logic. This dullness will be taken away. It's interesting, this point about logic, there are also verses which says you can apply your logic to the teachings. Right? But what does that mean? It's one thing that you're intelligent, but there's a misconception about being intelligent. Intelligence, it doesn't lead to any conclusion by itself. Whenever people say this person's intelligent, what they mean is something slightly different. Because intelligence is the ability to process something. But you always have to have knowledge that you're able to be intelligent with. You understand? So intelligence doesn't exist on its own. So someone says, oh, this person came to an intelligent conclusion. It means that they processed a certain type of knowledge. Some kind of evidence. There's always data and then process. Right? So what they do sometimes in espionage circles, and this is like Maya's trick, they look for people who are very intelligent. Because the danger with being very intelligent is that you can be so intelligent that you're stupid. You can be so intelligent that you're a fool. You can be so intelligent that you're ignorant. The process is very great. So what they do in espionage circles is you look for people like that. You look for people who's got a very strong intelligence. And then you just feed them misinformation. Right? Have you ever seen that? Sometimes, sometimes in people's association, you have someone who's just a bit crafty. So what they do is they go and tell people something about you. Okay? But they don't tell them the whole story. You know? They just give them one or two things because they just give them the things like, she did this and she said that to this person. They don't give people the full story. So when you don't give them the full story, you lead that person to have a negative view of the other individual, isn't it? And then they dislike the other individual, and I heard that you did this, and say, okay, I know what you heard, but did they tell you that the context was this, and this was going on, and that's why I said this to this person, and actually, I didn't say this independently, I actually repeated what this other person, I didn't know that. So what you have is the intelligence, and then what they call it cherry picking. You just feed certain types of information, and then that so-called very intelligent person who's been misinformed, or even just given things which are true but not the whole story. Without the whole story, it can still be a lie. They reached a complete wrong conclusion. Everything that they were told was true, but the other important facts were missed out, which led them to the wrong conclusion. Maya does that every day. Right? Just give little bits of information, don't give the whole story, let people come to the wrong conclusion. So this proud, I'm very intelligent. If you're very intelligent, you actually feel yourself to be a fool. You actually feel that. This is the paradox. That's the sign that the person's intelligent, is that he's humble or she's humble. And the moment you see someone who's proud, you can understand they actually lack intelligence. Huh? And when we're humble, what does Krishna do? He just gives you the conclusion. You have the maths exam, don't worry, I'll just give you the answers. Question number 1, the answer is this. That's what Siddhanta means. It's the conclusion of all the knowledge. You come into ISKCON, day 1, you're given the conclusion of all the Vedas. The actual conclusion of all the Vedas, the actual conclusion of all the sadhanas mentioned in the Vedas, how to enact them, the conclusion of what the mood should be, the conclusion of all the Vedas, everything that's ever been written, Vedic knowledge, Prabhupada has given it down. Okay, if you read all these literatures, just do A, B, and C, you'll go back home, back to Godhead. Absolutely incredible. So we have to take advantage of it. You should reclaim your ecstasy. Don't think Krishna consciousness is just some kind of painful process where everything is difficult and, it's so hard. It's not actually like that. If you're humble and sincere and follow properly. It becomes hard if you don't follow properly. It becomes hard if you make offenses. You destroy your own credit. Right? You sometimes have this vision of like the millionaire just like throwing fire into the fireplace, throwing money into the fireplace. Don't become that devotee. Right? We're very, very fortunate, but we have to reclaim. We have to reclaim the inheritance. Yeah, this is the point. So what we can do practically, we can on our day-to-day basis just be honest. How's the tank? How is the fuel tank? Right? Where is it? Where is it honestly? How's the fuel tank? What can we do? What can I do differently, better? And you know what? The funny thing is, Krishna's living with you in your heart. He's there. So the moment you're sincere, I guarantee you, the more sincere you are, the more Krishna will just show you everything. And you'll be like, wow, this is incredible. It's like, don't worry, I got you. Okay? I got you. I see you're sincere. Look this way. There's this you can do this, you can apply this, you can change this. It has a lot to do with understanding and really believing that Krishna is our well-wisher. We can say anything, but the reason why we don't surrender to Krishna sincerely is we don't really believe that he'll look out for us. Many of us, we've had bad experiences with authority. So you hear about Krishna, it's nice. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, blue boy flute. Yeah, I'm digging it. Yeah, garlands. I like that. Sharp-shaped earrings. Yeah, it sounds cool. One thing for Krishna, one thing for me. One thing for Krishna, another thing for me. Okay, today, 3 things for Krishna, 1 for me, because it's Janmashtami, like that. Look, it's his birthday, right? That kind of mood. But he will take care of you. Do this as an experiment. If you want to really see how this whole process really works, try to do it in a mood of surrender and a prayerful mood. Whatever's best for my spiritual life, I don't know what's best for me. Right? Try it as an experiment. Krishna, Prabhupada, I don't actually know what's best for me. I admit it. I know what my material attachments are. I know what I think is going to make me happy. I know what I saw on TV. I know what I saw on YouTube. I know what I saw in the movies. And I know that that same program's running in the back of my mind every single day of my life, consciously or unconsciously. And I know that it didn't work. I know it didn't work. I tried all these material things and I felt, at the end of the day, I looked in my heart and I saw, still empty. Right? And I know these things are hard to give up. I know. We're not going to pretend it's not like some kind of ISKCON cliche. Yes, I'm pure, I don't do anything material. No ISKCON cliches. I know I have my material attachments, but I know you give your mercy to the most fallen. Hello. Right? So therefore there's some hope. So we'll do the service, but we'll have that internal prayer. Dear Srila Prabhupada, I'm going to do service, right? I'm not going to wait for something. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it as sincerely as I can, but please, you guide me. You push me in the direction that I need to move in so that I can become fully pleasing to you. Okay? And that mood, there's a name for that. That mood is pure devotional service. Right? Try it and see what happens. Try it and see if anything changes in your life. Do it sincerely and just pay attention. And see what happens. Okay, I'll make a quick point and then we'll open up the questions because otherwise I'll go over time. So we also want to recognize that today is the disappearance day of Swarup Damodar Goswami. Swarup Damodar Goswami, is just so beautiful how these pastimes unfold. So, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahi Anya. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this golden avatar, he's the combined form of Radha and Krishna. When Radharani, when the Lord and his associates descend, it's literally a group activity. It's a group affair. So Swarup Damodar Goswami is the incarnation of Vishaka Devi. The Chaitanya Charitamrita, created by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, it is also based upon those recordings of the Lord's pastimes by such personalities as Swarup Damodar Goswami. So he's one of the Lord's most confidential associates. And he reveals the innermost emotions of the Lord. So this is extremely deep. Again, it's so esoteric and confidential. Just to even hear about such personalities. Prabhupada has done something extraordinary because it's almost given us like a normal thing. But this is not normal. Nothing that you read in these books is normal. This is not even religion. This is not, it goes beyond Dharma. This is just what the soul does in the most intimate place in the spiritual world. And we're reading about the most intimate associates of the Lord, whose love, knowledge, and dealings of the Lord are inconceivable. And they're all in the line of Srila Prabhupada giving this mercy to us. So through Damodar Goswami, he could sense Lord Chaitanya's different moods, and he'll do kirtan to enhance those particular sentiments as well. And he would actually help the Lord to deal with his feelings of separation from the Lord by reciting literature such as the Gita Govinda, Krishna Karnamrita, and so on. So a very, very close associate. And also Shivananda Sen. Many things said about Shivananda Sen. He would take responsibility for bringing devotees. It said 200 devotees. They would go from Bengal to see Lord Jagannath for Ratha Yatra, and he would arrange the accommodation. He would arrange the food, and he had such a deep sense of care for the Vaishnavas, and we want this. We want this mood of loving exchanges, loving dealings, because it's also fuel for the soul. And Shivananda Sen in Krishna Leela, Gaura Ganadesh Dipika says that he is Viragopi. Viragopi is one of Srimati Radharani's messengers. So as the Lord comes, his associates also come with him. So on days like this, we can pray to such personalities, please. Again, mood of humility, which is intelligence. I don't know what I'm doing. Right? You please move my life in the way that I can actually realize Krishna. Realize my own true interest, and realize the joy, the everything that Prabhupada wants to give us in this Krishna consciousness practice, lifestyle, mission, however you want to perceive it. Okay, so we'll stop there. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Okay, so do we have any questions? We may have time for one question. I know we should finish just before. I saw Mataji with a hand up at the back. I mean, are they bringing microphones, or how are they going to do this?
Mahaprabhu says, he's replying to Gopinath Acharya, and he says, you are a devotee. Because of your association, Lord Jagannath has shown him mercy. Yes. So, I just thought, maybe I'll kind of hear from you a little bit about mercy, because I think, speaking for myself, I feel like it just seems a very alien concept, even after chanting, reading, and Prabhupada talking so much about it. And is it because we don't consider ourselves that, we are all good enough and we don't need mercy, or we just don't pay much attention to it? How do we really bring that into our lives? How do we really absorb that, yes, we are the perfect candidates for mercy and there's no way out for us, actually, there's no other way out?
First of all, thank you for that question. Yes, I take as mercy that you're asking that question. Seriously. I was actually thinking about this point. This is actually something I wanted to bring up. So what happens is that by the mercy of those devotees who are very deeply connected to Krishna, very elevated Vaishnavas, because they desire for the elevation of others. Like, we talk about this in the Bhagavatam. By rendering service to great devotees of the Lord, and by continuous hearing of the Bhagavatam, everything that is troublesome to the heart is destroyed almost to nil. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. This is actually what goes on. So when they are pleased by our service, so we say Guru, great devotees, when they're pleased by our service, what happens is them being pleased causes Krishna to reciprocate with our sincerity. Right? That's actually what happens. So we're trying to please the Vaishnavas, right? And the more elevated they are, the more that Krishna reciprocates in terms of that desire to please them. And by them being pleased, their pleasure, Krishna's like, okay, you've pleased my devotees. Therefore, I will give you mercy. So this is how the heart becomes full. And that is why Lord Chaitanya is making that point. So it's a very, very good point you're making. Let's see. I'll read it again, actually. You said, which verse is it? 2:11.
2:11.
2:11. Yeah, this is such an important point that's made here. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, you are a devotee because of your association, Lord Jagannath has shown him mercy. It's exactly what's said here. When Prabhupada created this ISKCON movement, the idea was that the devotees would make people fortunate. The more mercy you receive, the more mercy you're also able to distribute to other people. You see? This is explained. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Madhurya Kadambini. He makes that particular point. The preachers, or let's say those who are giving Krishna to others, they are distributing that mercy. What they have received, they're giving it to other people, and that's actually what makes people fortunate. That ability to give people Krishna consciousness is an intervention in their own life. It's an intervention in their karma. Krishna consciousness is not something that you get from some karma that you've built up. It's not karmic. It's outside of karma. So we need to receive that mercy by serving properly, sincerely, right? Associating properly. To receive it, we should understand we are mercy cases. We should understand that very, very factually. It's not like I did it by my own strength. No, you do nothing by your own strength. If you're advancing, it's not because of us. If we're advancing, it's because we are pleasing the Vaishnavas and getting their blessings, getting their mercy, and therefore Krishna is reciprocating on that basis. This is our process. This is actually our process. Okay. So I think we'll have to stop there. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Janitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Okay.
His Grace Bhuta Bhavana Prabhu ki.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
So thank you so much, everyone, for coming today. So just to let you know, we are having this morning program every Sunday, as I'm sure you all know now. And some devotees have been asking when are the tickets available. They get run out very quickly, etc., etc. Okay, no problem. Haribol, Haribol. Okay, you can hear me. The tickets for the Sunday morning program are released on Friday morning. They tend to get snapped up quite fast as well, so do be quick when you are getting the tickets. Yeah, so Friday morning, they'll be available online. This is obviously for the benefit of people listening right now online as well. And obviously, as of now, until further notice, we're going to carry on with the same conditions, with the social distancing and, the same kind of like spacing and masks and everything. So now we can go for breakfast, and if everyone can please finish by 9:45. So breakfast will be across the hall, and then 9:45, because then the temple management needs to set up for the day. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.